could be getting old. I like to think I'm still a young cat, but I have been on the outs with sports because of what's going on, with all of the money that's happening, the abuse that's going on with college players. It just goes on and on and on. But, you know, every Saturday morning about this time, we like to do the dynamic dish. Now, what is the dynamic dish? The dynamic dish is my personal commentary. Well, some of you all who listen to the show, y'all probably say, well, your whole show is a commentary. Yeah, it is. You got a problem with that? But I really zero in on some issues that irritate me. And an issue that has been irritating me for some time now has been the issue with college sports and how coaches come into the inner city and basically cherry pick some of the best athletes. And when those athletes fail in college, and I don't mean as far as academically, but I mean socially, they are quick to dump them. So let me give you a couple of some examples here of what I mean. Quite often, thanks Dexter, good job on your part. Quite often what occurs with athletes, a lot of these kids for the first time in their lives have been away from home for the first time. And I'm going to tell you, you know, when my freshman year in college, it was a whole new ball game to me. And here's why. Because see, when you're in high school and you're a high school superstar, and I played for Little Rock Central, we were state champs, I was team captain, loved it. I mean, you're like a god. The people are worshiping you, the women are all over you. Yeah, y'all like that. I'd like to. I mean, people just love you to death. But when you get to college, you're just another number. I don't care how good you are. You're just another number. And then, too, you don't have the restraints in college that you would have in high school. And what I mean by that, mom and daddy ain't around. Mom and daddy ain't telling you to come in. Okay? Mom and daddy ain't telling you what time you need to get up and go to class. It's a whole new ball game. And for kids and young people who are not used to that, they get lost. They really do. That's why you find so many of them flunk out of school, because they get caught up in partying, drinking, and drugs. It happens, all right? You can go and spend the night with a girl. Ooh, you've never done that before. Or you can go and spend the night with a guy. Ooh, you've never done that before. You can party all night, as long as you get up and go to class the next day. Unfortunately, a lot of the kids don't even get up and go to class the next day. But the problem I have with sports, and why am I talking about this? Because I think when you are an athlete, there is so much pressure on you. Pressure is from your parents, because sometimes, let's be realistic, some of these mothers and dads, they are living vicariously through their children. That dad may have been a star athlete and his career was cut short because of injury or drugs or whatever the case may be. So they have a son, and now that son is an athlete, and that son is responsible for living out the dreams of their parents. We not only see this in athletics, we see this in all kinds of things. Your dad may be an attorney. He want little Johnny to grow up and be an attorney. We see this all the time. The problem with that is that the difference in just a regular guy or a young lady going to college is that a coach does not, or a professor does not come into the room, the living rooms and homes of that young academic and say, hey, look, we're going to make sure your kid is taken care of. That doesn't happen. But in sports, it does. It happens every year. That these coaches will come into our communities and they will sit and promise these moms and dads that their children are going to be taken care of, knowing all the time that that is a lie. Knowing all the time that those coaches are looking for the next big thing. And if your kid gets on campus and he's not living up to what that coach expected, that coach is getting ready to run him off. Okay? More importantly, these coaches know that these kids are out here drinking. A lot of young people get introduced to binge drinking in college. They know that these kids are participating in smoking pot. Yet, when they get caught, the first thing these coaches want to do is dump these kids. The first thing they want to do is say, well, we're not going to have that. Not understanding that this young man, or in this case, we're talking about athletics. This young man has a problem. And we know the devastating effects that alcohol can have on a person. So why is it that these coaches are willing to dump these kids as opposed to getting them help? Because you did say, Coach Johnson, Coach Smith, or Coach whomever, that you were going to, when you promised that mama, that single mama with 6 kids, that might have been the only child in her family that was able to go to college. And you promised that mama that you were going to take care of her boy. And soon as that young man runs afoul, you want to kick him to the curb. You don't give a damn about him. And in my opinion, that's what happened to Altee Tenpenny. Why didn't someone say, hey, and why aren't colleges setting up drug counseling and alcohol? It's easy to go to a young man and say, hey, man, you shouldn't be doing that drinking. But we know they do, some of them. So why aren't there rehabilitative services for young people in college who get caught up in drinking and drugs? Why isn't that? I mean, that boggles my mind. He said, well, the colleges can't afford that. Well, that's a bunch of crap. I just told you last week that the NCAA will garner $18 billion over the next 14 years. You pay athletic directors millions of dollars. You pay coaches millions of dollars. You build these big old buildings on campus. But you don't and you invest in the program, but you don't invest in these individual players. A lot of these kids come from the inner city and they have a lot of problems. Believe it or not. They have a lot of problems. And we cannot continue to allow these coaches to come into our communities and say, hey, we're going to cherry pick this kid, but if he screws up, we're going to kick him to the curb. We're not going to make sure that he gets his degree. So when we kick him to the curb, that kid is back at home, alcoholic, drug abuser, and then he ends up getting in the system. This is a joke. So what I say to Nick Saban, when you say that you think you failed Altee Tenpenny, yes, you did. The $7 million that you make, it is imperative. Because of you're more than a coach, dude. And this is to all the coaches out there. You have a responsibility to build that young man. You have a responsibility to make sure that that young man gets his degree. I don't care about football. I don't care about how many touchdowns he can score. I don't care about how many tackles. I don't care how good he can dunk the football, the basketball. If you are true to what you tell these parents, your job is to make sure that that young man comes out of college a better person than he was when he went in. And these coaches are dropping the ball. We see this all over the country. And I'm sick of it. I'm tired of it. There's an old saying, and we used to joke about this in Nashville. How can you tell if a coach is telling a lie? Dad says his mouth is moving. Because we saw this with Albert Means in Memphis. Remember that story? Where the coaches, and these were high school coaches, literally sold Albert Means to the highest bidder. Albert Means didn't even deserve to be in college. He could not do the work. He couldn't do the work. And those coaches, and he was raised by a single mom, those coaches went in and lied and got millions of dollars. And the mom living in the projects didn't get one penny. And her son ended up not even getting a degree, becoming ineligible because he was sold to the highest bidder. We have to do a better job. Those of us who are guardians of our community, and I say us, we have to do a better job of talking to parents who have potentially great players and giving them warnings on how to choose a college. Just because a college has a big name, that doesn't necessarily mean that that's where your kid belongs. And more importantly, I think we need to go back to going to HBCUs. Because see, look, let me tell you, that doesn't mean that kids are not going to fail at HBCUs. But here's the thing. The HBCUs have your child's best interest at heart in most cases. Because they understand the experience. They understand where they came from. We've got to do a better job. We've got to start calling these universities and schools and coaches on the carpet for coming to our communities and taking our best and our brightest, getting them to college, getting them beat up physically, mentally, addicted to drugs and alcohol, and then dumping them out on the street like they're refuse and garbage. We demand more. Just like you demand excellence from your children, you should demand excellence and truth from coaches and universities. Yeah, I'm mad because I'm tired of our children being used. And part of the problem is that we don't stand up as grown folks and protect our own children. Well, folks, that's my dynamic dish for today. You can go out to the Weekly Sports Magazine and catch other dynamic dishes as well. I hope you will. We've got to get out of here. Coming up next, we've got Hansel's Cooking Vegan. Thanks you for joining. Of course, stay tuned for all the great programming today on joynetradio.com. I'm Dynamic Dave. Appreciate you listening. Remember, a voteless people is a voiceless people. A voiceless people is a defenseless people. A defenseless people is a contradiction to democracy. Have a great day. See you next week.